Okay, welcome to the Public Utility Board's board meeting.
Oh, it's the workshop.
It's the okay, I'm sorry, we're right here at the workshop at the Public Utility Board. Discussion on preliminary Brownsville Public Utilities Board fiscal year 2008 budget.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is our first draft of the budget for next year. It's been in your packet. We plan on having a series of workshops with the board to come up with a balanced budget. This is tonight some historical data we wanted you to see and what our first run of the budget looks like and our strategy going forward to produce a budget acceptable and approved by the board in September 10th. So with that, I'm going to ask Leandro to start us off. We do have a PowerPoint. You may want to come around this side or follow off of yours.
It's right here.
It's right there, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Leandro Garcia, Chief Financial Officer for Brownsville PUB. And as John mentioned, this is an overview of the preliminary numbers that we're looking at for our 2008 budget. We do plan to hold some workshops. First one on Thursday, August 23rd, where we will provide extensive details. We are working on putting together some binders for you that will provide a lot more detailed information. A second workshop will be scheduled for the week of August 27th, and with your guidance, hopefully by September 8th, or by the September meeting, we will have an approved budget. We do have until the end of September, the end of the year, but we'd like to, by September 18th, by September 10th, have an approved budget. What I'm going to be going over here briefly is a little bit of historical information, some 5-year information, some preliminary numbers for 2008 on the O&M side as well as on the CIP side, a timetable for the workshops and adopting the budget, as well as a timetable for following through on some of the rate changes that were proposed at our last meeting through the Commission. We have received some guidance from legal counsel and some resolutions and ordinances that we'll be covering, and we'll be having to have some board action here at one of the workshops to proceed with one of the resolutions. Other issues involved, for example, like those, the ordinance and the resolutions that are pending. This first slide provides a historical look at our customer growth as well as what we've had in terms of personal resources to manage our operations. In 2003, we had approximately 51,000 customer accounts, have grown to 57,000 customer accounts. These are, on an average, accounts that capture all the electric, water, and sewer service that we provide. In 2003, we had 480 approved budget positions, maintained that in 2004. We did drop, as a result of limiting some positions in 2005 to 462. We did maintain that for 2006, and then based on some recommendations from R.W. Beck in our management study, we did add 10 positions in 2007, some at the plant and some to address some of the construction resources we needed. So we currently stand at 472 approved positions versus 57 customer accounts on average. In terms of accounts per employee, we've grown in terms of responsibility per employee from 106 in 2003 to 120 for the current year. Typical statistic that is looked when comparing utilities among the industry. This is a little busy, but what we try to do here is capture revenues by the three utilities, water, wastewater, and electric, the two components, base revenues and fuel revenues. The first shaded area at the bottom is the fuel and energy cost, which has grown from $29 million in 2002 to $86 million current year approved budget. Our base revenues, or revenues for electric, have grown from $43 million to $62 million in for our current year approved budget. And then the next layer is water, a trend of $15 million up to $20 million current year. Wastewater, $14.16 million in 2002, has grown to $21 million for the approved budget this year. All combined, gross revenues have grown from 101 million in 2002 to 191 million for the current year budget. As you'll see later on in the financial presentation, we are falling behind our current year revenue, so at this point we did show the budgeted, but we will end up significantly below those numbers. In terms of how we compare our personnel, or combined O&M personnel and non-personnel to revenues, this graph illustrates the share of the O&M burden to the overall gross revenues. In 2002, O&M personnel costs were at 17 million. Non-O&M personnel were at 14 million for a combined 30.7% of gross revenues. That 30.7% as revenues increased and we kind of stabilized O&M requirements went down to 29.8 in 03, 29.1 in 04, 25% in 05, 22 in 06, and we currently for the budget are at 26.7%.
But we've added some increases in pay and stuff like that.
Yes, yes.
We're not there before the year before and year
Yes,
before.
and we had an increase in salary from 05 to 06, for example, at 20 to 21 million personnel, and then currently this year we did have that additional merit pay and other personnel-related costs, whether they're insurance or...
You also set a minimum of pay of $8.50, I believe it was, right?
Yes, we did raise the scales, all pay scales for that.
We are lower percentage-wise than when we started out in 2002, but we've also made it better-paying jobs for employees.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've enhanced the compensation package and have adjusted the scales as recommended by a consultant.
We're still lower.
Yes, sir.
Percentage-wise.
Percent-wise. This next graph illustrates what we call available funds for CIP and other non-O&M uses. As a result of the plan of finance back in 2005, we have been fortunate to dedicate some funds to liquidity type needs. We did establish in 2005 the operating reserve, the improvement reserve, and have continued our CIP pay-as-you-go funding. You can see that increase in 2005, where we've gone from 11.43 million in 02 up to 21 million in 05, 19 in 06, and currently per budget, the adopted budget, 23.96. So we have made a significant improvement of use of what we used to call surplus monies. At this point, I'd like to say they're available coverage dollars to dedicate for liquidity purposes as prescribed in our bond ordinances following the 2005 Plan of Finance adoption. This next graph shows how the city as well has benefited from our financial performance over the years. We, back in '98, were dedicating a gross COB transfer of 5.25, a net of 3 million. That has grown to 10 million budgeted this year with a net of 5,000,073. Big increases there between 2004 and 2005, and then remain stable in 06 and 07. So the last couple of years are a result of the plan of finance and going at 10% gross revenue, adjusted gross revenue calculation, and deducting, of course, the COB usage. So it has proven to be a transparent approach and something that the city can that we can predict with much certainty through the...
Let me ask something right here. I know at one time when I was city commissioner, we talked about getting a set percentage of the adjusted net income. Was that ever discussed?
No, that's where it's reflected here in 05.
Is this just...
That is what we adopted. We take gross revenues and adjust it for southmost and fuel.
But that percentage is set?
10%. 10% every year. So if we have an adjusted...
How does that compare to San Antonio?
I'm sorry?
How does that compare to San Antonio public utilities?
And we talked about that last time, and 14% was...
San Antonio gets 14%?
So going into the budget here, as we tweak the numbers and have definite numbers, the city will be able
This was done
to...
with the refinancing system. You were there, I think, wasn't he?
Right.
No.
Just after,
No, we talked about it, but never was it.
just after, yeah.
Yeah, it was never was.
Right after you got off the,
Yeah,
you got the...
yeah.
The only adjustment after that 10% calculation, of course, is we offset the COB usage, what the city uses for electric, water, and sewer, and provide them a cash or wire transfer net of what they use. So, in essence, they pay us back for service.
That's something that I question all the time because the charter calls for no charge to the city of all electrical usages. But I guess in the bond covenants,
The bond covenants.
that's,
We recoup that through...
Well, the charter was changed when the refinance was done.
I don't think the charter was changed, I think the bond covenants.
Bond covenants.
Our bond
Yes,
indenture was changed.
Yeah.
Which was captured through an ordinance in the city, through the city. But in essence, we recoup what the COB, what the city uses in service, as we retain that portion and transfer only the net amounts. An overview of our debt service, historical here. We, in 2002, had total debt service requirements of $18.7 million, $7 million in principal, $11.43 in interest. That remained somewhat steady through 2006, really. Through the current year, really. It's been not much of a fluctuation there. We did have a fluctuation in 2005 as a result of utilizing cash on hand to make that September 1, 2005 debt service payment, but for the most part, it's had a little bit of a steady increase, but nonetheless consistent. We are projecting the 2008 to go up slightly, but $23 million is where we're at this point.
Is that standard for utility companies, pay this much interest?
We've and interest or debt service. The interest is a reflection of our marketability of the bonds that we put out to market, and we did receive a favorable sale at the refund at the time we refunded in 2005 based on our rating upgrades. In terms of what the principal reflects on the balance sheet, we currently owe $290 million in long-term debt, another $40 million in short-term debt. Those limits, when you compare it to our net assets, or what we call a debt to equity ratio, is well within industry standards, within the percent.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yes, it is. And this next chart illustrates a few years of rate increase history. We started in 2002 here, where we had electric 5%, water 7%, wastewater 8%, on up through 2006. Our last increase for fiscal year 2006, those came into effect in the summer of 2005, October 105. 5%, 5.5 for electric, 8% for water, and 5% for wastewater. Those were captured in a Black & Veatch cost of service study, which also prescribed some rate increases for 07-08. For 07, the anticipated rate increases were 5%, 8%, and 8% for electric, water, and sewer, respectively.
That's what was approved by the commission
Yes.
at one time.
That's what was anticipated, and it's part of the overall plan of finance, anticipated rate increases that we would need. We
Now,
did...
They approved the plan, but only the year by year. They didn't,
No, but when they went to New York, they submitted a plan of a 5-year to raise rates. They committed to raise rates. Then they came back and they raised rates. Then they retracted not to raise rates for the remainder of the 5-year plan. Is that right? Okay.
Those
Now,
rate increases were on the
question-
table.
The question I have is, where are we now on the, because this is expected, on the impact fee study? Are we still waiting for the land use assumption by
waiting on the land use and then
from the city?
finish that, yeah.
Okay. So have you when's the last time you talked to them, and what have they said?
Supposed to have a kayak meeting, I don't know if everyone's here.
Because this is going to affect this right here.
Yes,
Yes.
it will.
Okay, so when is the next kayak meeting?
I'll find out, see if I can get that for you.
So the recommended increase for 07 was not adopted. The recommended increase for 08, as we go into our 08 fiscal year, we're not recommending a rate increase. And for '08, Black and Veatch had recommended 0 for electric, 7% for water, and 0 for wastewater. So we're proceeding with budget preparation without rate increases for fiscal year 2008. And as we get better information on our CIP and how we're going to fund capacity, non-capacity as part of the impact fees, we will formulate some projections for '09, '10.
And I want to point out, Leandro, that the point that we have not had rate increases, okay, that we committed as a board, us here not to raise rates, is causing us to tighten our belts also.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is a conservative plan that we have here, and I want those who are listening to us to know that not only did we reduce rates, okay, we cut expenses, and we're maintaining low cost by not raising rates. So therefore, it's causing us to tighten our belts.
That's great. We've had a solid performance this last few fiscal years, and we met our bond covenants. And as we proceed into the future, we'll have to look a little closer to be able to achieve operating levels that we need based on available resources.
And also, I want to point out that our electric rates have dropped now below Magic Valley, where we were consistently higher than Magic Valley and everybody else.
Correct.
In the region. So, I mean, this plan has really worked to where it's benefited the employees, it's benefited the customers, it's benefited the city, it benefited everybody overall.
Correct. The additional acquisition of Oakland Union has proven very valuable in allowing us to decrease the fuel factor.
The word does not get out, and they look at PUB as being the bad guy, that we're wasting money, and we're not. We're really being conservative.
In regards to this, let me bring this up, Mayor. I talked to John about it this morning. It was suggested to me by people that other cities have what they, in the previous year, they add that up and divide by 12, and so that year people that are on fixed income can be on a budget, let's say $200 or $300 a month, and then at the end of the year, if it's less usage, then they get credit. If it's more, of course, they have to pay the difference. I think it helps people that are on fixed incomes if we could say, I don't know, you have to study it. Maybe it won't work here in Brownsville, but other cities, it does work. So I asked John to look at it.
We can revisit that. I know we've considered that in the past, but it's always a good idea to revisit.
Is it feasible, you think?
To see if it's feasible.
Good.
And just to point out, because this is very important, a lot of people give PUB a bad rap. For every 1,000 kilowatts the average home uses, plus 10,000 gallons of water, they save $25, okay? So if you look at your bill for the users, if they look at their bill and more or less average it out, if you use a minimum of 1,000 kilowatts, 10,000, you can compare to last year, it's going to be less, okay? And we also purchase Oakland Union, which is lowering utility rates. But for the above average home like myself, you're saving $75 to $100 a month. So that's a big drop.
That's a big savings.
One of the big moves that the board and the commission did for the customers with respect to water was adjusting the block rates back in March, and that is working. We're seeing from my side it's not favorable because I'm seeing a decrease in revenues and consumption, but from the customer side, it's just the awareness of those block rates, where you want to stand in terms of monthly usage, because the more you use, the more you're going to pay, and that was the intent of shifting the burden to the high-end users and establishing a higher block rate for the big users. So that has proven very effective, and we're seeing the opposite end on our revenues, but I think the customers are benefiting from that move.
Mayor, from Maryland, we have not the city has not set a kayak meeting yet, so we're still waiting on the city.
So we need to maybe prompt them a little bit.
Maybe you can talk to Ben or...
Get Maryland, talk to Ben, I'll talk to him.
All right, she's back.
A few highlights, objectives on our '08 budget here. We're done with the historical information. Our objectives have been to continue meeting operational requirements, basic stuff, exceeding our debt service coverage requirements, exceeding our operating improvement reserve requirements here to establish firm, solid liquidity in case of catastrophic events or we have to respond to major maintenance items. Yes, sir.
Oh,
I thought you had a question. And as well as to defer any debt as much as we can, issuing debt, continue our CIP with current revenues, the pay-as-you-go, what we call CIP funding. And going into the 08 proposed budget, we're looking here again, as mentioned, no rate increases for 2008, second year in a row. Continue funding for CIP and reserve requirements as prescribed in the bond ordinance. Continue a fuel sub-account funding to mitigate the fuel and energy charge, and that has proven very beneficial this year as well as last year. We established a $4 million funding level, and we are currently utilizing some of that accumulated monies to supplement the fuel and purchase energy charge. So here again, it was established to mitigate any spikes in gas prices or any major fluctuations. So that has proven beneficial. We're currently at 4 cents per kWh. So that's what's contributing to our overall bill being less than other utilities at this time. The next bullet is we'd like to continue funding market pay studies, so that we can stay current with the salaries across the industry and locally, and continue our maintenance pool account in order to respond to unforeseen needs on a month-to-month basis. Here's why I'm going to introduce the preliminary numbers for fiscal 2008. And it's a little busy. I'm going to walk through it slowly. On the left side, based on our current projections for revenues, we initially projected $177 million in revenues, total revenues. Quite a few assumptions came into play here in terms of growth and current level current year consumption levels, as well as just use patterns and the local economic conditions. To that, we adjust some revenue reductions that the board has proposed or approved at the last meeting. That $3 million in red, the first block, includes reductions to the customer service charge for electric customers, residential customers, and the late penalty fee reduction from 10% to 5%. So that would be a revenue reduction of $3 million, $3.08 million. Now, one of the directives or guidance we got from the board was to try to mitigate some of that as best we could. We are proposing revenue adjustment to some reconnection fees that would enhance the revenues by $700,000. So it doesn't totally offset the reductions, but nonetheless it mitigates it a little bit. The net resources available we're looking at is $175.44 million. That's on the sources side. On the requirement side, staff or the entire utility has identified requirements of $183,860,000. Different components there include operations and maintenance at $73 million. No, at $58 million. Fuel at $73. Transfers out at $25 million, and that includes the transfers out to the reserve account, and then we got utility debt service, and then the COB cash transfer. Total combined requirements add up to $183 million. Very obvious here that we don't have those resources, enough resources to fund that level of requirements. We're looking at an $8.42 million gap. That gap represents approximately 4.6% of the total requirements when you include fuel, and 7.6% when you exclude fuel. So that's one of the things we're going to be working on at our workshop. We're going to provide you with all the details that comprise that 183 and perhaps some strategies that we can utilize to mitigate that funding gap. This next graph provides the sources of the $175 million in revenues that we project. Starting at the top, $129 million from electric, We've incorporated here the residential electric customer service, reduction of $1.4 million, going clockwise. Water sales, $18 million, wastewater sales, $19 million, other revenues, $6.6 million. Then we have the late penalty fee reduction, $1.6 million.
That takes into account the reduction from 10% to 5%?
Yes, sir, the 1.681. The proposed adjustment to reconnection fees, which we can talk at length and give you more information at the workshop, of $719 million, and then interest revenue of 3.5. That's what we currently have available to fund the 2008 budget. Breakdown on electric, just so you can get a feel for what's base and what's fuel, and we have $53 million anticipated. Yes?
On your revenues, I'm sorry, I missed it. You have $719,000, and that was a reconnection fee increases?
Increases.
That's what your proposal is. What is that for? People that have been disconnected, and then you're going to charge them, you're going to increase the fee to go back and reconnect?
Correct. We're currently at $25, well under other utilities, what other utilities charge. We're not recouping just the dispatching requirements. We're proposing to raise it to $75, and even that is well below what other utilities, local utilities charge. So, and we can have some statistics and cost requirement breakdowns at the workshop. But we are proposing at the minimum one item to increase, one fee.
What are the fees that you're proposing to increase? It's the reconnection from $25 to $75, and what's the other one?
That was it. And then the reductions. The $719,000 is just going from 25 to 75 on reconnections.
From 75 to 25?
25 to 75. Increase, I'm sorry, by 50.
And what's the industry rate right now?
Well, other local utilities charge 100, 150, over 100.
25 doesn't meet our cost.
Oh, that's got to go up. When's the last time it was looked at?
Forever, I know.
We looked at fees that are related to base revenue type of operations. We have other fees that we charge in the development phase that one of the agenda items pertains to development, but that falls into a different revenue stream.
Impact fees will cover all of that.
No.
Impact fees are to cover, development expenses. They don't come into play for operating requirements.
But Leandro, okay, I understand why you would want to do that as far as the reconnection. What is the connection fee to start off with? New connection.
But this is not for reconnection.
No, I understand. This is a reconnection fee.
$25.
$45?
25.
25.
For a new connection also?
Yes.
But you want to increase it to 75.
The reconnection piece of it, once you
In other words,
have service established.
we reduced the late fee from 10% to 5%. Now he's wanting going up if they get disconnected from 25 to 75, which to me undermines the 10% going down, bring it down to.
Does it, let's
Or
say
maybe
the
what
bill
you
was
could do is
$100.
net it out and say the
And
net
we'll
increase is
10%.
700,000, so instead of going 10%, you go 5%. You know, those different ways. But I guess really with this, at the end, you're short on your budget. You're not balanced right now, right?
We're not balanced, but,
You're gonna get
our
there.
job is to present strategies to you that we can get guidance on.
You got some more income coming from elsewhere too, right?
As far as operating revenues, the 175 is it. That captures all our revenue sources, operating, non-operating.
Any cuts we can make?
In revenues?
No, in operations.
Yes, I mean, there are cuts, there are strategies we can look at that we're going to go over here just in general, but in more detail at the workshop.
And when are we going to do that, in the workshop?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right.
Let's hear where you propose a cut and where maybe some fees can be increased.
Okay. This like I mentioned, showed the sources on the electric side. Other revenues, $6.6 million, consist of here, if we left the entire discounts or penalties intact, $3.1 million on the right. Connection and service charges, $977. Pole rental, we rent poles out to cable companies, $300,000. Miscellaneous income, $428. Billing discount, $700,000. T-cost, we've increased our T-cost revenues, transmission cost of service, based on a recent PUCT ruling. So we gained here about $800,000. And then other sales. On the uses of funds, that all the little requirements that add up to $183 million are captured in this one pie chart. Starting on the top right, electric, fuel, and energy cost, $73 million. Here again, going clockwise, southmost requirements are $4.3 million. Personnel O&M, $24 million. Non-personnel, $22 million. And then the gap to bring it down to $175 is $8.4 million. We have a few supplements here that we can consider, and part of the strategy is just to do away with some of these, based on your guidance. But we have identified new positions in certain areas, and at the workshop we'll have directors and managers or the other members of the executive team provide you with justifications on where we're falling short in meeting operating requirements out in the field or within a quick turnaround, acceptable turnaround time to maintain service for customers. Merit pay, $678,000. The maintenance pool account, we'd like to continue that at $1.5 million to address unmet needs that occurred during the year. Personnel market pay adjustments, $250,000. Other non-operating expenses, $3.1 million. Debt service, $25 million. The city transfer, $5.5 million, and then the contributions or transfers to our reserve fund, $6 million, and CIP funding, $15 million. A few actions or a few items we can consider here to mitigate that shortfall. One, of course, that we've discussed is increasing the reconnection fees from 25 to 75. A reduction in O&M personnel, O&M requirements, non-personnel O&M reductions, elimination of the maintenance pool. We just highlighted 1.5 as part of the requirement picture. Limiting funding for the market study adjustments, pay adjustments.
How much is the study?
Well, the study itself, we're going to need to engage probably a new consultant, but $250 is for actually adjusting wages as we, do the market studies and determine that, certain positions are not at the level consistent with market pay. So the $250 would be actually to adjust wages. We would fund the consulting contract out of our existing O&M or
What percentage of personnel would you say would come under Homeland Security? Any ballpark?
Very small.
Very small?
Yeah, less than.
But the problem we have with that is that a city our size does not qualify for a lot of the funding. But what I found out in speaking to other mayors is that they partner up with other communities, like Laredo has partnered up with McAllen because of the size. Laredo's a little bigger than Brownsville. It still doesn't qualify for grants.
Yeah, but remember, we have a port. They don't have a port.
I understand that. But even then, there's funds that we cannot access unless we partner up with another community, and that's what we're looking at to do.
The population is 250,000.
Because they have a port too. They have a port, but it's not a port with water. It's a port of entry.
Yeah, well, we have that too, but besides that, we have the water port. I mean, that's a big, that's a big.
Well, I think we qualify under more things.
I don't know whether we have grant writers that can look into this.
We can look at that. I think I was talking with Chris today and the mayor about that.
Yeah, we're looking at that, colleagues, that, how
Maybe it's something that we could.
how can we capitalize on the Homeland Security grant?
It's, I think on that, John, and we'll talk about it a little later, but we can partner up, it really bases a grant writing, because there's a lot of Homeland Security funds out there that we can use for our, because terrorists, we have something, we went over something for our water reservoir. So, and if all in one grant, you can put in the port, you can put in the city, you can put in the town, and we can all maybe pool.
That's right.
Like if everybody pitch in a little bit so the PUB doesn't have to bear the brunt to the city here, since it includes all of us.
The next bullet here at the top of this page, no new debt service for water in 2008. As you recall, we collectively each have recommended an 8% rate increase in 07 and a 7% in 08. We've foregone those, and it's not affordable right now to issue debt for water, so we wouldn't be able to assume new debt service for water. Our funding of the operating reserve would fall more on the burden on electric and wastewater, so we'd have to do some realignment there. We currently fund it based on a 60-20-20 share, 60 to electric, 20 from water, and 20 from wastewater. We'd have a reduction to the pay-as-you-go CIP funding. Although we would have, on that last bullet, funding available for electric and wastewater utility, water CIP funding would not be available, and I would recommend, because we do fund new connections as a capital need, I would recommend one-time funding out of carryover improvement plan cash to fund approximately $600,000 in new connections for water as a CIP activity. So, but in itself, CIP funding would not be available from current revenues for water. That covered the O&M side of the budget. On the CIP side, we are looking at $52.9 million capital plan, which consists of $25.8 million electric, $12.5 million water, $14 million wastewater, and then $400,000 for vehicles, equipment, and support facilities. Funding sources for our CIP would come from carryover funds of $16 million, fiscal year 2008 scheduled CIP funding of $15 million, impact fees carried over and new collections of $6.8 million, construction 2002 bond money $5.2 million. That project fund was our proceeds from a 2005 bond issue of $9.5 million, and then zero new debt issues. Timetable we're looking at here for the budget process. We wanted to share with you the highlights today of where we are. We are scheduling a workshop for August 23rd, next Thursday, a week from this Thursday. We are going to try to get you binders with detailed information by the end of the week or early next week, Monday or Tuesday. Have a second meeting on the week of August 27th, and then a September 10th budget approval agenda item. Another timetable we're looking at is the City Commission ordinance change process. We're looking at submitting an agenda on the 27th. That's after, for that week of the second workshop. Having our first hearing, first reading on September 4th, and perhaps our second reading the next day, Wednesday the 5th, or until the following meeting on Tuesday the 18th, with any changes in rates effective October 1. We're trying to stay within the 90 days we projected at our last meeting, so we want to make sure this is set in place at the beginning of the fiscal year. That concludes the overview. We also have attached to your document is a resolution that legal counsel has drafted for us that would need to be acted on at the next workshop. We would have to call a special board meeting so that we can act on that resolution and then send it on to the City Commission. We also have draft ordinances for the City Commission consideration, but we wanted to wait on the final resolution ordinances until we are definite as to what we're going to do with the penalty, the customer service, and the reconnection fees.
What do you mean? I thought we were definite on that.
We're definite. We're definite.
Oh, yeah, of course.
We're definite. We just need to, based on legal guidance, formalize it via a resolution.
Oh. It's got to be approved by the commission.
As an ordinance.
Yeah.
By the board as a resolution. And we'll schedule it at the workshop next week. Any questions? I'd be glad to answer. or John.
No questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Can any motions from any of y'all for opening up the meeting?
So moved.
We haven't had a meeting yet.
Huh?
We're not in the meeting yet.
We're gonna open it.
Yeah, but I'm saying, you can't open the meeting, you gotta call the meeting to order.
That's
Well,
what
that's what I'm asking for a motion from any of the board members.
to open meeting.
Motion made by Dr. Zavaleta, seconded by Mr. Valadez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, the meeting open. Now, we go into executive session. Any
That we move into executive session?
Second?
motion by Mr. Valadez, seconded by Dr. Zavaleta. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we go now into executive session. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Invocation. Lord, bless all the children of Brownsville and give them the energy and drive to excel in their new school year, which begins in about a week. And bless all the parents who make it happen. We also pray for the goodness in the teachers and the principals. St. Francis of Assisi became a saint because of his lifelong dedication to the well-being of all the world's animals, especially dogs, cats, and birds. St. Francis of Assisi, pray for us. And we thank you, Lord, for the abundant rainfall here in South Texas that has the Falcon and Amistad reservoirs at full capacity. And thank you for that abundance. Amen.
Amen. Very good, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We will now go to item number 6, consideration and approval to initiate a request for proposal process for securing external financial advisory services. Ms. Mayor Amuada.
Well, I think, we're going into selling some bonds, John, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I think this would be the perfect time to go out for RFPs to hire a financial advisor. And, based on that, I'll bring it to the...
What bonds are those, John? Is that the Oco Union?
Yeah, long-term on those.
Yes,
Leandro, you wanna?
if I may,
Long-term.
If I may, yes, we do have $40 million in currently outstanding commercial paper notes that we we're planning on taking out and convert to fixed rate debt, long-term debt, $40 million. Our commercial paper program will require some documents to be renewed in the summer of 2008. So we'd like to have a financial advisor in place here towards the end of the fall, within 90 to 120 days. To complete the transaction, either in late fall or early spring during the winter, to take care of that refinancing before we begin revising documents next summer. $40 million is what we would be taking out. A little bit of information on the current contract with Estrada Hinojosa. It was negotiated back in 2003, December 2003, for a 5-year term, which expires in December 2008. It does require just a 30-day, no-cost notice, so we could proceed at your direction to release an RFP, which we've drafted, or it's under development, and try to secure the services of an UFA, hopefully within 60 to 90 days, within 60 days. And then proceed with a financial transaction in November, December, or even into January.
Any more discussion? If not, then I'll move that we go for RFPs as soon as possible.
I'll second it.
Motion by Dr. Zavaleta, seconded by Mayor Amuada. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Is there any particular item y'all want me to hear or stay for, or anything like that? I have to be excused.
Yes, sir, Mayor.
Thank you for your understanding.
Okay, would you like the mayor to stay? so they don't know.
I can take 'em.
Okay, Mayor,
I didn't want him to come.
have a good evening. Item number 4, update on Brownsville Matamoros Weir and Reservoir Project. Mr. Brusiak.
Okay, the board had asked at the last meeting to have our consultant that's helping us with the Weir project, Arturo de las Fuentes in Mexico, to give the board a briefing, and Arturo's here, and Arturo, please.
Members of the board, I am Arturo de las Fuentes, consultant for the proposed Brownsville Matamoros Weir project. My company, Cruces and Puentes Internacionales, is located in Mexico City. I am here to provide a progress report on the proposed Weir project. First of all, I have to mention that binational projects or projects along the Mexican-U.S. border are well known because of the high level of complexity. Some of the reasons include participation and support of 2 countries, 2 states, and 3 local governments are necessary. Each one of the institutions involved in both sides of the border has different levels of responsibilities, different legal frameworks, and 2 different cultures. The way to manage projects is different in both countries. When does a project become a binational project? When agencies or institutions from all levels of government in both countries agree with the project. When the project becomes a priority in both countries. When the project technically benefits both sides of the border. When there are financial resources to meet the necessary requirements to accomplish the project. What has been the situation with the proposed Brownsville Matamoros Weir project? This is a project that has been proposed by the Brownsville Public Utility Board in the U.S. side. There is not a sponsor on the Mexican side. In order to have a binational project, there needs to be an agreement between both governments. Regarding the proposed site or location of the project, there is not an agreement yet. Unfortunately, there is not an official position with the Mexican institution regarding the proposed Weir project. Since January of this present year, my activities have been as follows. First, identify all of the participants in the Mexican side and discuss their concerns about the proposed Weir project. As a result, there were 3 main issues of concern. First, to solve the water supply problem in Matamoros and Brownsville. Second, the Weir site or location may have a significant negative impact to Matamoros. And finally, any proposed location along the river for the project will have a negative impact to Matamoros. It was important to identify which Mexican institution will be coordinating the project. As a result, it was discussed and agreed that the International Boundary and Water Commission, or SILA, will be the institution that will coordinate the project because of its functions. It was also important to know the requirements to initiate the process in the Mexican side. SILA needed an official request from a U.S. institution, in this case its counterpart, the International Boundary Water Commission, ABWC, to continue with further discussions and requirements that are still pending for the success of the project. As a result, the ABWC sent a letter to SILA on June 1st of this year, requesting the Mexican government to analyze the project and provide different studies that were completed by the U.S. consultant for PUB. It was important to address some issues that will ensure that Mexican institutions will work as a team in the proposed Weir project. As a result, the first issue was recognizing SILA as the coordinator. The second, issue was the official request by the ABWC to SILA, requesting that the SILA analyze the proposed WARE project. The third issue involved SILA requesting a meeting to all Mexican institutions, federal, state, and local governments, to have further discussion about the project. The request for the meeting was sent on June 29. The meeting was held on July 17 in Ciudad Juárez with the appropriate local, state, and federal agencies. As a result, the Mexican institution agreed on the following. SILA was recognized as the coordinator for the WARE project on the Mexican side. The Comisión Nacional del Agua, the Mexican National Water Agency, was requested to prepare technical terms of the additional analysis that need to be undertaken in the Mexican side that will determine any impacts the WARE project will have on the city of Matamoros. These technical terms will be used in developing the scope of services for the additional studies that are required in Matamoros. The Mexican position will be presented in a binational meeting as requested by ABWC. Finally, as part of the binational meeting, which is scheduled to be held in the first week of October, the Mexican institutions will have the opportunity to raise its concerns on the proposed project. In the binational meeting, the expected position from the Mexican government could be as follows. It is crucial to solve the water supply problems for Brownsville and Matamoros. The Mexican side will consider the construction of the proposed WARE project as an alternative to solve existing water issues. There are some concerns that can result if the project is built affecting both urban and rural areas in Matamoros that can be solved through engineering or mitigation measures. However, the Mexican government needs to know in detail how those problems can be addressed. Once this information is gathered, it is expected that the Mexican government will agree to construct the WARE in the location that has been proposed by the PUB under some conditions, including addressing any impact that can result for both cities, or not to build the project at all. Thus, if both sides agree with the proposed site and address any technical problems, there is an opportunity to start the binational work next year, which includes further discussion on planning, design, construction, operation, and maintenance. Once both governments understand that the WARE is a binational project, then it will become a priority for both countries.
Dr. Zavaleta, question?
Yeah. As we all know, we already have at least 2 dams already that have been built, that operate and so forth. How different is this from the Falcon Amistad Dam? How different is it to get permits and so forth? Is there a difference, or is it the same?
The difference is that this WARE is not considered like a dam. So
what are we going to call it now?
Weir. It's easier, much easier to permit this than the Falcon Amistad.
Right. Because there is a treaty in the 1945, the waters between the United States and Mexico, and it said that in the Rio Bravo should be just 3 dams.
3 dams?
Right.
That was the treaty?
Yeah, this was the treaty. So this is one of the reasons that this is not considered like a dam. So it's easy the process that the big one.
You also said there was no sponsor in Mexico, you said?
Yeah, there is not a sponsor in Mexico because...
What does that really mean?
It's because there is not a project in the Mexican side, so there is not an sponsor for that.
I don't understand.
No one's
What
pushing
does
it
it
in
really
Mexico.
mean?
Nobody's pushing it in Mexico.
It's not on anybody's
Because
agenda.
nobody's agenda over there.
They heard about it, but they don't,
Nobody's approached them officially at it,
and no one's working on it.
up to this point.
All this time, how long have we been on this WIR project, for how long?
Well, the problem,
Almost 30 years.
the problem is, there has been attempts by PUB to to contact, I think, Mayor Blancavela's administration, had some contact and try to move the project forward over there, but, you know, administrations change, and with administration changes, you know, paperwork, I don't know what kind of filing systems or what they have over there, but, you know, new administrations come in and say, well, nobody's contact, and administrations change over here also, so when new players come about, I have no idea, but I do know that there has been attempts by PUB to move this project with the mayors of Matamoros and the governors of Tamaulipas, but just that administrations change and
Yeah, but
then the drop in the ball keeps.
It seems to me that you always have changes, and I don't understand. I mean, there should be, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, there should be a set standard of how you approach and how you proceed if you want to build something binationally. It seems to me like things change from project to project, you know? You really don't know who to talk to, or the permit and so forth.
Well, I think
I'd like to have more optimism about this, and I want to be optimistic, but it seems like it's always a moving target, always a moving target.
Let me respond to that. And Arturo mentioned, and I think the important thing, you know, that's been developed over the last 8 months is the fact that SILA has now taken on the responsibility of being the coordinator on the Mexican side. And that is very, very key, because SILA is a very strong, they're the lead agency in Mexico, and they have the ability, and as Arturo mentioned, they got all the necessary agencies that needed to be part of the meeting. They brought them all together into the meeting, and they made a list of the steps that are necessary to be able to move forward with the project. And the binational meeting that Arturo was referring to is specifically for this project that will be held in October. When we get out of, and PUB will definitely be a part of that, when we get out of that meeting, we will leave the meeting with a firm understanding of what needs to happen in the next 6 months or so to be able to determine if, in fact, we have a project or not. And so the mere fact that now you have a coordinator, you know, SILA being the lead agency is a huge success to PUB, because now you have somebody in Mexico to go to. Now you have somebody that can answer some questions between now and 6 months from now. And so I think that is a major milestone that we've been able to accomplish, because...
What does SILA stand for?
Yeah, that's what it's...
SILA is the Comisión Internacional de Límites y Agua. They're the counterpart of IBWC.
It's a federal...
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And so that means that SILA and the U.S. section of IBWC, you know, will always meet together to discuss the project. And so that is a big key. And you're right, there's really no process, you know, that I'm aware of that's written that you say, okay, I'm going to go here and they're going to tell me what I need to do, you know, from step 1 to construction. That's not there. And I don't think it's there for international bridges or rail bridges. But having SILA as your coordinator, you know, I can't emphasize this enough. I mean, that's major step, because now we've got somebody to go to move this project along on the Mexican side.
You know, I don't want to go to the route of the Brownsville Navigation District, where they spend $21 million and they have nothing to show for it. I mean, people say, I did this, I did that. No one's got anything. I just don't want to go that route.
No, and I think, again, first part of October, when that meeting occurs, I think we'll have a much better understanding of what needs to happen if, in fact, it is going to become a project.
Now, that SILA officially has accepted this project?
No, they have not accepted the project. They have accepted the responsibility of being the coordinator for the project.
Okay, so they're going to coordinate on the Mexican side?
Correct.
But, if I can ask a question, but like you said, they could say, yes, proceed under these conditions, or they could say no. And they could say that we are not interested in participating in this project, but we should have an answer either way in October.
In October?
That's correct. Well, in October, we'll have the next steps that are required, and we won't have a yes or a no.
Okay.
In October,
what's gonna be required is some study that has to be made on the Mexican side that will show, if there are gonna be any negative impacts to the city of Matamoros or the state of Tamaulipas. And if there are, how can those impacts be mitigated? And so that study, I imagine, will probably take, another 6 months. So I'm saying by March of next year, that's a target date when you will have a definite yes or a no from the Mexican side, from SILA and Comisión
On the
Nacional de
American
Agua.
side, we have the permits already.
We're ready to go. But you see, the problem here, and when I first came on this board, I think one of the first items that I voted on was to purchase land where the weir was gonna go. And one of my comments back then was, why are we purchasing land for a weir that we haven't even gotten the Mexican approval? And that's one of the challenges, and I voted no back then for the purchase. And one of the deals now is, what if Mexico says, oh, yes, we like the project, but we don't like it there? Well, that kind of kills it, because we did all the environmental studies and everything done over here. You know, we should have been doing this together. But anyway, I think there's been interest in the Mexican side of, and we have, and Pete Pula is the county administrator there at the county.
How long has the county worked with SILA with the Ural's Bridge project?
On the rail project, probably 5-6 years. The last 2 years, we've been focused on relocating the levee on the Mexican side.
And they have accepted to
Yes.
work with y'all already. But I just find it hard that we're gonna have to spend $150,000 to wait for an answer for 6 months, and then $300,000 for a year to finally, when they decide if they're gonna take us or not, we gotta pay for the meantime. Is that okay with everybody?
I don't understand, what are you talking about?
Where do you get the
Well,
money?
he's got a fee, there's a fee per month that we're already established with him.
With who?
With,
No, that, in October, after the meeting in October, we'll come back and we'll report to you. And at that time, we'll show you the results of that meeting, then it's up to you all as a board, if y'all wanna move forward with the project, or if you wanna stop
but
the project.
they're already on the payroll with PUB. Well, getting a fee, the 25,000, what's the 25,000 we pay a month
We don't pay 25,000.
to the same company that's working with the bridge on the county?
Yeah, the RMA?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's,
different.
yeah,
That's
no,
another
that's,
one, okay.
yeah, you're correct, but that, I believe that contract is either over in September or October. That's what I'm talking
I
about.
thought we were gonna get a report from him.
That's him.
That's it. Okay, well, that's, okay.
That's, and he put, I think that fee is, I think we approved it to the end of this year.
Yeah, and that's, I believe it's $7,500 a month.
Yeah, 7,500.
But Pete, I know you work for the county, what hat are you wearing today?
Today I'm wearing the hat, of the Cameron County Regional Mobility Authority. That is who has the interlocal with PUB.
Now, and again, you know, Pete, just to give you a little background on Pete, he used to be the city manager for FAR when their bridge was built, and he was also a city manager for Eagle Pass.
I know about Eagle Pass.
Yeah, I know you do. And you know, we have a person that's been familiarized with getting bridges done and stuff, so you know, he's been there, he's done it. I think we're a lot better than we were in
It's
the
not cost
past.
anything, right?
For what? No, it's
For Pete.
for,
No, not for me.
no, Pete kinda wishes that, you know, for him, yeah. So, whatever the wishes.
I think we're very fortunate to have Pete, working.
You know, I think, I mean, at least the conversations I've been a part of, the meetings I've been a part of with the Mexican agencies, I think it's a project that they wanna move forward with. Unfortunately, they were not part of the decision-making process when the location was selected. And so that's something that over the last 8 months we've had to overcome. But again, and I'm gonna emphasize this, you know, now we have a coordinator, not a sponsor, but a coordinator, and that being SILA, and that's extremely important because they are the lead agency in Mexico on any water-related type of project.
Are they gonna accept our engineering studies? Because I know I've asked for the last 5-10 years.
Part of the meeting in October is gonna be for that, because I believe, a couple of months ago, we turned over the studies that were done on the Mexican side, on the US side, and they are being reviewed by the engineers at CNA, Comisión Nacional de Agua. So, that meeting in October, and hopefully we'll get some feedback prior to that so that we can hand over to PUB so that we can be prepared to answer some of the concerns that they have based on the studies that were done on the U.S. side.
Any more questions? Thanks for your report. Thank you.
Again, Arturo provides a monthly report, that can be distributed to the board.
Thank you. We go back to item number 1, action taken on items discussed in closed meeting. There was...
What do we need to say on it?
Council?
That the board accepts the recommendation to authorize staff.
And to give Mr. Ruziak, as general manager, the authority to enter negotiations as discussed. I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Mr. Guerra, seconded by Dr. Zavaleta, to allow the CEO to enter into negotiations with staff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Before we start the chairman's report and the general manager's report, let us move with the public comment section. Mr. Ruiz is the public commenter today. Just to get the room a little excited, we moved you up.
Chairman of the board, Mr. Bujak, Mr. Sanchez, ladies and gentlemen, I'm familiar with the issue that the chairman just approached. It was formed as the International Boundary Commission in 1848 in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, and it doesn't say anything about three presas, because if it would, they would have expired, because in Mexico, on the Mexican side, you have the presa Marte Gomez, and you also have one over there in the area of Chihuahua that had accumulated all the water, remember, that they owed us water, and this was an issue about 2-3 years back in the administration of Mr. Fox. So, in the economies of scale and supply and demand, it's okay, but in the other discipline, in the economies of scarcity, we have to address that issue for the future, and I think that you have to revisit with this issue, because it has been open to the public. We have discussed it with the Army Corps of Engineers at the Civic Center, and it has been about 4 years, and I think that we need to have transparency, and we have to let the people know where we're headed for, because if you check on the Mexican side, they have Presa Marte R. Gomez, and they have another one in Chihuahua, which I forget. El Cuchillo. Correcto. So you see, then this already fulfills the more than three. But I think that you have to revisit and say, well, Matamoros has so many maquiladoras, and Brownsville, well, we only have so much. Do we really want to go in the area of industry? Because 20 years from now, Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir,
there's not going to be any water around. So we have to make sure that we know what we're doing. I have some questions that I wanted to address today, because it has been brought up to my attention that the plant that we have in 511, several people have mentioned it to me, and I want for this board to clarify it for me today or later on, that plant is broke, that is not producing what it's supposed to produce, and we have $30 million invested there. We need to have someone, I'm telling you, I need to know, and a lot of people want to know what's going on there. This is number one. Number two is, when I came today, I've had my meter changed 4 times in 5 years. You know, if you don't like me, well, that's okay. Don't bring it against my family, because I have to pay a very high utility bill, and you know I'm on a fixed income.
2 more minutes, Mr. Ruiz.
Okay, sir. I'm
just letting you
Number
know.
3, water rights. I understand that the water over there in the flumes, on the flume section, you know where the flume section is, Dr. Zavaleta, Military Highway, where the nuns used to have their convent there, that it's up for sale, or that we want to sell it. Why would we want to sell that enormous supply of water that we have there? I don't understand. Now, another thing we have to address is the issue that you have to have a lot of transparency in the real project. So you need to ask more questions, and we need to start from zero again. Start from zero, because we have the Army Corps of Engineers there. To me, I don't know what's the purpose. Do we have a purpose for it? Because you see, the maquiladoras are in Mexico. Over there is where they're going to use the water. Are we going to have to pay for it also? Now, another issue that was addressed today, the bonds about refunding, we're up to here with bonds. We don't want any more. We don't want any more bonds, and I beg of you to follow procedures. I will inform you that I have been in touch with the Attorney General's office concerning the public debt in reference to the city of Brownsville, concerning the manner in which debt is issued. There is a procedure that has to be followed when it concerns fixed income securities referred to in Wall Street as municipal bonds, and there are also general bonds, general obligation and revenue bonds. There's two types of bonds. But you know, we cannot handle this anymore. I also want to check that why do we have a middleman buying our electricity for us when we're not producing it? Why are we buying? Why do we have to pay him to buy our electricity? It just costs us more to buy electricity. And those are the issues. You know, we have so many issues. But you know, you already know what I have in mind. There's a lot of questions to be answered, and I ask, please, just for transparency. Let the people know what you're up to, where we're going, what's your plan, and how we're going to get there. Thank you, kindly.
Thank you, sir. Then we're gonna, any more public comments? Okay. I'm gonna read the report now, ladies and gentlemen. The Texas Public Power Association presented the Brownsville Public Utility Board with its System Achievement Award at its annual meeting held on July 25th in San Antonio. Chief Executive Officer John Brusiak, Board Member Dr. Joseph Zavaleta, and I received the award on behalf of the PUB. The Texas Public Power Association recognized PUB for achievements in customer service, reliability, and financial strength. PUB continues to provide several customer services tailored to our customers' needs, ranging from walk-in service for thousands of customers to enhanced online services based on recent upgrades for bill payments. We've maintained a high level of reliability and financial strength by adding new and affordable power and making systems improvements. We recently purchased an additional 54 megawatts of the Oakland Union's coal-fired power plant. The new purchase will diversify Brownsville's PUB generation, will reduce fuel costs, and will result in lower electric bills for our customers. We've maintained a high level of operational reliability for our customers by making system improvements that include 2 new major substation projects totaling over $3 million. Property insurance for natural disasters has been renewed with significant cost savings. Also, an ongoing aggressive tree trimming program helps Brownsville PUB avoid service interruptions caused by high winds common in our region. We support the community in our city. Brownsville PUB regularly works with local and regional entities to attract new businesses that bring jobs and strengthen Brownsville's economy. In addition, the city can better provide local services with the dividends received from the utility revenues. The Texas Public Power Association represents Texas's publicly owned electric utilities. Members include municipal utilities, joint action agencies, river authorities, and rural electric cooperatives. Brownsville PUB is very proud of this accomplishment. I'm also happy to announce that in June 2007, PUB customers continued to pay the lower electric bills compared to last year. In June 2007, the average PUB customer paid 92.61 cents for 1,000 kilowatt hours compared to $116.61 in June 2006. This means that PUB customers paid $24 less compared to the same month last year. In June of last year, PUB customers were paying about 11.7 cents per kilowatt hour, and this June, the cost has gone down to 9.3 cents per kilowatt hour. Also in June 2007, the Brownsville Public Utility Board electric customers paid the lowest bills in the Rio Grande Valley and one of the lowest bills in Texas. Our closest competitor was Magic Valley Electric Cooperative. Magic Valley customers paid $114 for 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. This is $21.47 higher than what the PUB customers paid. CP&L retail energy customers also paid higher bills than PUB customers. CPL customers paid $151.97 for 1,000 kilowatt hours. This is $59.36 higher than what the PUB customers paid. The lower electric bills are due in part to the purchase of the additional 54 megawatts of the Oakland Union coal-fired power plant. PUB customers will continue to benefit from this purchase. The PUB distributed the Water Consumer Confidence Report to customers to comply with the 1996 Safe Drinking Water Act amendments. The CCR, also known as the Water Quality Report, is important because it contains information about the quality of PUB's drinking water. The Water Quality Report also contains information about the water sources and water delivery process. The report provides information about the water quality so that customers can make decisions regarding their drinking water consumption. The 2006 PUB Water Quality Report indicated that the drinking water complies with all TCEQ water regulations and no state limits were exceeded. In addition, it classifies the PUB water system as a superior water system. The English version of the report was mailed out to 57,000 customers from May 18th to June 15th, 2007. Through their monthly PUB billing statements, the Spanish version is available upon request also. In addition, the reports are posted on PUB's website. Reports were also delivered to various community organizations for distribution to the public. Information in reference to the Water Quality Report was also provided to the public during the PUB Consumer Advisory Meeting of July 18, 2007. Mr. Brusiak, General Manager's Report.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I only have a couple things. One, this past week, Chairman Robert Sanchez and Board Member Dr. Zavaleta and I went to Washington, D.C. To meet with our lobbyists. We met with staff from Senator Cornyn, Hutchinson, and Congressman Ortiz's office concerning the Weir project, and also a project that we're trying to resurrect, which is the Resaca Restoration Project that was being done by the PUB, and it was transferred back to the city. I thought we had a really good meeting, and I'll ask board members if any comments on that meeting and what we should do to proceed.
Dr. Joseph Zavaleta.
Well, first of all, I'd like to tell the public that they got their money's worth when we went to Washington. I guess this is for a change, but we did do a lot of work. I think very successful. I was very impressed with the law firm that represents us, the lobbyist, O'Donnell and Montgomery. As we all know, 8 years ago, they started the project on the Weir project, the restoration, and they actually got $17 million for us. And lo and behold, they were progressing and they were doing a lot of work. And the city of Brownsville, under Mayor Trevino, all of a sudden decided not to have them, to have some other guy named Mike Parker, who had been dismissed by the Corps of Engineers, and he got $0. So we're behind, at least two years behind, which we could have actually done a lot more money, gotten a lot more money by now. But I recommend that we concentrate on this Weir project and on the Resaca restoration. I think it's very, very important. They're very optimistic about it, and I think if we continue to do this, maybe we should ask the city to have PUB do the heavy lifting for this.
Okay. Can do that and convey that to the mayor. So, okay. The other thing I had is our financial report. Leandro, be very brief.
Yes, in the interest of time, I will do an abbreviated coverage of our financial performance for June. Year-to-date through June, just the gross revenues were $75,579,694, as you can see there in the bottom right of page 2. This is after including $120 million from net operating revenues and offsetting gross revenues by fuel and energy costs, as well as Southmost and wholesale energy expenses. Our total expenses for June year-to-date are $32,683,159. When we add in debt service, total requirements excluding fuel and Southmost total to $50,094,958, leaving a surplus balance of $22 million, which is currently shared $4.4 million to the City of Brownsville and $17.9 million to PUB. The $17 million has continued to fund our operating reserve and CIP requirements. As you can see there, we'll on target with 9 months worth of funding, totaling $17,347,000, leaving a surplus of $579,267. On the O&M side, I want to share with you here on the far right here, $30 million has been spent on O&M expenses compared to budgeted $33.9 million. That is a difference of $3.9 million under budget, or 11.5%. We are over our 2006 year-to-date of $28.5 million, 1.5 million over 5.2%. And this is a result of different type of increases of cost this fiscal year. COB cash transfer here, $4.5 million versus budgeted $4.1 million compared to 2006 of $3.8 million. We're ahead of the budgeted amounts for COB. This provides the contribution of surplus by electric, water, and sewer. On the consumption side, electric KWH consumption for June was $117 million. Compared to the June 2006 of $110 million, we were $6.9 million over the 2006 performance. Year-to-date, consumption through June is $887,807,692 compared to $814 million in 06. We're ahead by $73 million in KWH consumption. On the water side, for June, we had 609,000 gallons consumed compared to 597 in 06. We're ahead by almost 12,000 gallons. Year-to-date, though, we are behind in water consumption. Year-to-date through June this year is 4.7 million gallons versus 4.8 million gallons in 06, a difference of 187,000 gallons. On the wastewater side, wastewater consumption for June was 405,000 gallons compared to 394 in 06. Year-to-date, we're 125,000 gallons behind the 2006 performance level. On the CIP side, our budget for CIP annual plan was $61 million. We have spent and encumbered a total of $25.4 million, representing 41.5% of the budget. 40% has been of that requirement of this expenditure of 25 comes from electric at $10.2 million. 56% is a combined result of water and wastewater of $14 million. And that concludes the short presentation. Any questions?
Any questions? Does that conclude the report?
Yes, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Brusiak and Mr. Garcia. Item number 5. Consideration and approval to use the City of Brownsville to televise the Brownsville Public Utilities Board meetings. I put that item on the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, and board members, because there seems to be some problems with recording of these board meetings. many citizens have come forward to complain about a volume issue. Just thinking about it, I almost feel like talking louder here so they can hear on the TV, because sometimes the volume's just not there. Then you crank up the TV and put the volume loud, and you're hearing it, and if you have to change the channel, boom, something else. So it's something's wrong. Something's wrong, you know? So, Mr. Brusiak, can you talk to us about the proposal from the city of Brownsville?
You have a proposal in your packet that we received from the city, and basically they would like $1,000 per meeting to do the televising.
What are the $1,000 for? What are they charging?
It's in your, it's got their outline of their services in here. It's to actually provide the videotaping, put it on the channel, and air it 6 times. Six times on channel.
Just a minute now. What are they charging us? They're charging us for Mr. Wallace Garcia here to be here?
Well, this is BISD.
And the city does the same thing for the city commission meeting. And so they would use their people to do it.
I don't understand. Is someone else here besides Mr. Garcia?
He probably needs to be briefed a little bit. It's the BISD has been filming, and that's a $250 charge.
Okay.
And now, because of problems with the volume and other problems, we've checked with the city of Brownsville, and they've now given them a proposal, but it's $1,000.
For the city to do it?
Yeah.
What is BISD charging us now?
$250.
Well, why don't we keep the BISD?
Because they haven't gotten the audio right in about 4 months.
Well, it's our fault. I think it's... It's our fault, right, because of this right here.
Well, the technician...
Maybe, you know what,
our in-house technicians say it's not.
Maybe we should have lapel microphones. That would do it. That would solve the problem.
Like Hollywood.
No, seriously, that's what you need. This is not for recording. This is for people. We need lapel microphones. That'll solve the problem. And let's keep BISD, okay? I don't believe in $1,000. No.
It's a shame that the city couldn't... Is it the city or this library corporation that's charging the city?
But Robert, Mr. Chairman, all we need is lapel microphones. That'll cure everything.
But I thought these were pretty high quality.
No.
The thing is, everybody keeps talking, and it picks up a lot of,
And not only that, look how many papers we got here spread over.
Yeah.
Well,
why don't we try the
lapel,
and then if that doesn't work, we can revisit it.
I think the $1,000 a session is pretty high.
It's pretty high.
I was looking at the proposal, they're talking about regular meetings, they're not even talking about special meetings.
Right, per meeting.
But no, they were gonna do regular meetings, record each regularly scheduled piece. They're talking about special meetings also? Because later on, they do mention special meetings.
Now, you got a good point there, Mr. Guerra, and then on C of their proposal says, the city can change schedules for emergency, but also they can do some priority programming. So in other words, they can just put some commissioner reading while the PUB board meeting should be on there. I think the community needs to look at those issues instead of a commissioner reading some stuff. But, you know, it's almost like a political sabotaging, because that's what happened last time. Some people start talking some good issues, and then the volume goes down to mute. And the guy's muted. And then everybody else starts, I mean, it just...
Robert,
so anyway, let's do it later.
Try it for a couple of months to let microphone.
I'd make a motion we table this issue at this time.
I second.
Get it right, Wallace.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Guerra, seconded by Dr. Zavaleta to table it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Hollywood's on hold, Chris. Okay. Let's go to number 7. Consideration and approval to hire a consultant to aid in constructing and implementing a disaster recovery plan. Mr. Garcia.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is an initiative we've been working on here for quite a few years, and we did finally release some RFQs in March and received 6 responses, of which were rated based on value, work effort, cost, time frame, and their experience in providing disaster recovery type of programs. We did ask at the last board meeting, we did provide the results and did suggest that the top two firms present to you tonight their proposal, provide a 10-minute presentation. We do have representatives from R.W. Beck, or from Beck Disaster Recovery, and from LBL Technology Partners. The first presentation is by John Burry with Beck Disaster Recovery.
Is this part of R.W. Beck, Leandro, or was that just a...
Similarity.
You are a part of R.W. Beck?
What are they? I don't know, Your Honor. I usually just take it out and put it here on the next thing. No problem.
Oh, and I'm going to bother your mic, just make sure you don't wear them the rest of it. You can work in video production.
Oh, yeah. There you go, good.
What happens if you wear them in the room?
It becomes interesting.
You hear that, Doc?
What's that?
Don't wear those things in the restroom.
There was either.
Keith, we're going to be your brother. Get electrocuted.
7.
Thank you very much.
Who's this?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we are here to make our presentation on our proposal to provide IT disaster recovery services and business continuity planning services to the Brownsville Public Utilities Board. We're here today to not only tell you about who we are, but in the manner that we are going to carry out this project with the PUB. My name is John Burry, and I'm Managing Director with Beck Disaster Recovery. I actually have been with the Beck family for the last 8 years, working not only in water and wastewater utility consulting, but disaster recovery and emergency management planning consulting as well. And this is my partner, Joanne Martin, our Director of Client Services, and I know she is a very humble person, but I will tell you that she is one of the foremost speakers in continuity planning, and is actually was invited by the Governor's Division of Emergency Management last year in 2006 to make a presentation on business continuity planning for local governments at the Texas Homeland Security Conference last year. As you mentioned, we are part of the R.W. Beck group. R.W. Beck is our parent company. I have worked with folks like Daryl Pullen, also Tim Corrigan, Patty Cruz, on numerous occasions during my tenure with Beck. And one thing I will say is that Beck Disaster Recovery is cut from the same cloth. We are provide the same high level of service to PUB, and we are known for not only our emergency management and disaster recovery services, but our third-party objectivity in our continuity planning and disaster recovery planning projects. Why choose Beck Disaster Recovery? Well, first and foremost is that we do have staff across the state of Texas, and we have that ability to respond on a moment's notice. Just to give you an example, last week we were called by the county judge of Collin County. We are currently putting together a continuity of operations plan for Collin County, and the judge had to move up our kickoff meeting, and we were able to respond and make that happen and get staff there on a moment's notice, a day in advance. Not only that, but we do in our project team bring together Beck Disaster Recovery with R.W. Beck and have a well-proven approach based on our methodology for business continuity planning.
And that's what I'm going to speak to a little bit more. It's a very process-driven. We don't come in with software. We don't come in with custom templates that we customize. We come in and really get to understand your business to figure out what will it take to be able to continue your operations in the event of emergency. And those types of emergencies can be just about anything you can think of. In fact, most of the times it's the little things that get you, that'll bring an IT server down, or even be in a situation where you have folks that can't come to work. I know I'm from North Carolina. Don't hold that against me. It was a pleasure to be here today. But in Charlotte, North Carolina, they had a strain of the regular flu go through and affect their school system such that they didn't have enough faculty and had to close the schools. So it can be just about anything that can affect you from a standpoint of denial of access to your facility, denial of access to your systems and equipment, or even denial of access to having enough workforce to continue the operation. We take pride in going back to standards. That's something that I think from the standpoint of other firms that do this, we go back and our heart is in the standards. What are the best practices? These are some of the standards that our methodology complies with: Emergency Management Accreditation Program, EMAP, National Fire Protection Association, NFPA 1600, which is the definitive guide to business continuity planning. I know John has experience with the requirements here in Texas related to IT security standards.
Yes, the Texas Department of Information Resources guiding all the information technology for state agencies. We're actually working with Texas Tech University, putting together a crosswalk based on those standards, as well as Texas Administrative Code 202.72 through 74. So that's definitely along the same lines of what we plan to achieve with this project for PUB.
One thing that's really important to our clients is compliancy with NIMS, National Incident Management System.
Yes.
This is very important on the local level to be able to coordinate with your local emergency responders to ensure that you have the personnel and resource requirements. I'm too short. It's hard when I'm with John. Make sure that you're prepared to be able to respond in an emergency and fulfill the expectations to meet your NIMS compliancy. What is our approach to continuity of operations planning or business continuity planning? We take a holistic approach and really look at it as a program for your organization. It really starts with a process-driven approach and help you define the program, identifying the business impact analysis and the risks along the way. It's very important to understand all the resources that are required, and resources can be both IT systems, they can be vehicles, they can be cars, they can be phones, they can be people. A lot of times there's resources that are just the people that have the intellectual capital in their head that has to be written down and put on paper. And it's very important then to get the things documented so that you know what to do when a disruption does occur. And we take a stance from the standpoint of we want you to be able to continue to maintain the business continuity plan after we leave, so we make it a part of your normal operations through the whole project. Our approach involves 5 main phases: project initiation, business impact analysis, vulnerability and risk analysis, understanding the risk, and these are continuity-related risks, things like making sure you have people cross-trained to do critical functions, making sure you have alternate equipment available at a moment's notice, things like that. Then task 4 is business continuity planning, and then a sub-plan is an IT disaster recovery plan because it is an important component of your entire plan itself. Phase 2 would be plan implementation, which would involve testing. A plan is only as good as it is tested. There's a project schedule. If you flip one more slide ahead, there's a project schedule in your presentation, and our goal is to have the project finished within 4 weeks. This is pretty standard. Most of our projects take 16 weeks from beginning to end, and it involves interaction and consultations on site. Each one of the diamonds in the presentation represent the interaction directly with PUB. And then we believe in iterative development so that you can see progress along the way and make some adjustments, making sure that we help you identify what are your critical resources and the critical functions, and that culminates into the final plan and implementation. Our management approach is built on what R.W. Beck, our founder, has had since 1942. We have been around since 1942, and it essentially represents the management and solid management we have as a company. John, is there something you wanted to elaborate on that?
Well, definitely, and I think this will be very clear on the project team, working with, bringing Daryl Pullen in as someone who is going to be very closely involved in making sure that the project meets the needs of PUB. This team, I can assure you, is one of the best continuity planning teams, in the country, and has worked on several projects together as a team. Myself and Joanne, Jake Haggerty, have all worked on several continuity plans together. Teresa Bouchard, who is our project manager, I'm sorry she wasn't able to make it today. She's actually kicking off a IT disaster recovery project in Palm Beach County, Florida, and was not able to make it. But I assure you that this team will be available if needed and if accepted by the PUB to work on this project on behalf and with PUB.
So we'll leave you with some closing thoughts of why you should choose Beck Disaster Recovery. First of all, I had knee surgery about 3 years ago, and when I went to have knee surgery, I wanted to find someone who had done 100 knees. I didn't want somebody who'd done shoulders and elbows. I wanted someone who'd done knees. And frankly, if you're looking to find somebody who's done continuity plans, that's us. We've done it. We have a systematic approach for doing it. We're not going to be creating something on the fly. We also help develop the Commonwealth of Virginia's planning guidance, which is recognized nationally as a best practice. So we've been there, done it, and what we want to do is do something that's very viable and meaningful for you. Also, we have a reputation of already serving PUB since 1981 through R.W. Beck.
Thank you very much for having the opportunity, and we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, I'd like to know, there's a big difference between you all and the LBL on the Phase 1 and Phase 2. On Phase 1, you're 81,000, they're 18,000. Phase 2, you're 17 and they're 55. What is the difference?